right, hello. Welcome to the Hold My Helmet Football Podcast. I'm your host, Will Reichling. So last week I went into the AFC predictions and who I think are going to make the playoffs, my standings for every division. I ranked the division based on winning percentage, best to worst. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing with the NFC. And I like to start with the NFC East. Now, the NFC conference, I said last week, it's a little easier route to make the playoffs than the AFC, and I'll get into that further later in the episode. But what I mean by that is, in the NFC, really all you need is, a solid roster, a good defense, a good head coach, a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over, and you can make the playoffs. In the AFC, you just need to be special at quarterback. That's the only way you're going to make the playoffs. So the NFC, there's an easier path for some of these teams to make the playoffs. Some of the teams that make the playoffs in the NFC would not make the playoffs in the AFC. So let's begin, and we'll see what happens here. So I'd like to start with the NFC East. I have the Eagles winning the division at 15-2, so I think they're going to cruise through the regular season. I don't think a Super Bowl hangover will happen. I think they're just going to pick up right where they left off last season. They did lose some pieces on defense, but they had way more than enough depth to replace those losses on defense. So I think they're just going to be fine. They're not going to skip a beat. And adding Jalen Carter makes that defense even better. So, they're sitting pretty good right now, the Eagles. I think Jalen Hurts is going to be on a mission since he came short in last year's Super Bowl. Like I said, he had a game for the ages in that Super Bowl. So I think they're just too talented on both sides of the ball to take a step back. I think they're the best team in the NFC. It might have been the Niners if they had their quarterback situation more figured out, but the Eagles are definitely the best team in the NFC, and they have the best quarterback in the NFC. Second place, I have the Dallas Cowboys going 10-7. I think the Cowboys get off to a rocky start to start the season. It's a little tough, but I think they pick it up and, they win 10 games and they make the playoffs. Pollard's coming off a major injury, Tony Pollard, so it might take him some time to get back into the flow of the season, a few games. They added Brandon Cooks, but they lost Dalton Schultz, and Dalton Schultz was actually probably Dak's number one reliable target on that offense. He looked for Dalton Schultz a lot in that offense. And Brandon Cooks is a solid number two, but essentially the offseason before this one, you traded Amari Cooper to the Browns. You're basically replacing Amari Cooper with Brandon Cooks, so in a way that is a downgrade. But you do add Brandon Cooks, and you didn't have that last season, so it goes hand in hand. But I still think it's a little bit of a downgrade. I mean, Amari Cooper is a great receiver. So like I said, Dak Prescott 18-23 when he throws 35 plus passes in the game. 18-23. So, I do think they need a solid running game, basically. They need a good defense. I explained this in my top 10 quarterbacks, why Dak didn't make it. I don't think it would be a terrible idea to bring back Ezekiel Elliott. He's still a great short yardage running back. I'm pretty sure he had double-digit touchdowns last season. So that is not a bad option to explore, especially if you can get him for way cheaper than his contract was in the first place. So I wouldn't rule that out for Dallas, but they do take a small step back this year, but they're still too talented enough to not make the playoffs, so they're going to win 10 games. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The New York Giants I have going 6-11. Now, I know I live in New York, so I have a lot of Giants fans that are friends, and, a lot of them are going to freak out over this. But like I said last week, it's all about schedules, man. You got to put things into context. Like, who did they beat last year? They beat the Panthers, the Bears, the Texans, the Colts, the Commanders once. The Commanders were okay, but they still weren't a great team. They had a point differential of -6. They were 3-6 against teams over 500. I could just keep throwing out these stats all day. Here's another one. You know how they started off the season very strong? To end off the season in the second half, the last 8 games, they went 2-5-1. So I think the Giants were a little bit of frauds last season. I do think, a lot of it comes down to great coaching. I do like their coach a lot. I think Daniel Jones has all the physical tools you want in a quarterback in 2023. He's big. He can move. He's got a really good arm. But I just think he's, average, slightly above average when it comes to producing on the field. Last year, Brian Dable proved that you could win games with Daniel Jones and make the playoffs, especially in the NFC. But, I think he's got a ceiling. And, they definitely improved the offense. They added Darren Waller. They had, Paris Campbell, Jamison Crowder, if he stays healthy, will be effective. They drafted, I think his name's Jalen Hyatt. So I do think they add some pieces on offense, but it all comes down to context. Like I said last week, just because you improve your roster doesn't necessarily mean you're going to improve your record. So I think the Giants take a step back this season. It's going to be tough sledding for them. Like, they could surprise me again. I could be wrong, but I do think they take a step back this season. I have the Washington Commanders coming in last place in the NFC East, but going 2-15. Why? Who is their quarterback? I know if Jacoby Brissett plays, they might win 2 or 3 games more than that, maybe get to 5-6 wins, but that's not necessarily the case. And Sam Howell's only played 1 game, so we have no idea what he is. And I would put my money on that. He's nothing special. They do have a great defense, and they have talent on offense. Terry McLaurin's great, but how great can you be when you don't have a quarterback throwing you the ball? So, and I do feel like they're going to go with Sam Howell. They might start the season with Jacoby Brissett, but I do strongly feel like it's going to end up being Sam Howell. They might end up in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes and tank. So I feel like that's the direction Washington's going to go. New ownership, new front office most likely. So there's going to be a lot of moving pieces. It's probably going to be a rough season for the Washington Commanders. A lot of uncertainties, especially at quarterback. And, Ron Rivera seems like he might be on his last leg eventually. So rough season for Washington. That's what I'm predicting. So the NFC East, I got the Eagles 15-2, Dallas Cowboys 10-7, New York Giants 6-11, and the Washington Commanders 2-15. Now for the NFC North, I have the Detroit Lions winning the division at 12-5. I think we all have a strong feeling that the Detroit Lions are going to win the division this season. I feel like this is their year. They have everything's led up to this point. Hiring Dan Campbell, trading Matt Stafford for Jared Goff, and Jared Goff essentially has resurrected his career on the Detroit Lions. The players play hard for Dan Campbell. The whole biting kneecaps, his original press conference, had me laughing a little bit. He seemed like he was going to come off as like a tough guy, but he seems like a culture builder. He seems like a really good culture builder. The question's not going to be their offense because they have a great offense. The question's going to be their defense. They did have a lot of injuries in the secondary last season, and they had a lot of pieces. They had C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Emmanuel Mosley, Cameron Sutton, all defensive backs that will help their secondary. But they did trade Jeff Okudah to the Falcons. So, they're definitely going to be tested week 1 against the Chiefs. That's for sure. So, right out of the gate, we're going to see if this defense has improved. And I think they're going to have some slight improvement from this year to last year. I mean, they were tied for 3rd most points allowed, and they allowed the most yards last season. So, for me, it's got to be better than that, and I think they will be better than that. So I have them win 12 games this season. The Minnesota Vikings I have coming in second, but I have them going 8-9. So they take a step back from last year, 8-9. I can't get. They're not going to go 11-0 next year in 1-score games. It's not going to happen. So that they got embarrassed by the Giants in the playoffs. That really showed that they were frauds. They let go of Dalvin Cook, but I feel like Alexander Madison is going to have a big year as his replacement. He always seemed effective when Dalvin Cook got hurt last season. They lost Adam Thielen, but they replaced that easily with Jordan Addison. So I do think they're, going to be effective enough to win games, especially on offense. The offense will still produce, but the ceiling, is always going to be equivalent to Kirk Cousins' ceiling. Shies away in the big moment. He puts up numbers in the regular season, but again, he shies away in the big moment, the biggest games. He always shrinks. So, Kirk Cousins has a ceiling, so this team has a ceiling. So, 8-9, about average. So I think Minnesota's going to be about average this season. And they also had the second most yards allowed last season on defense. So, that defense has to improve, but they also lost a few pieces on defense, Patrick Peterson. And so the Vikings definitely take a step back next year, come in second place, 8-9. I have the Green Bay Packers. Well, again, spoiler. I have the Packers and the Bears tying, both at 6-11. Tied for 3rd and 4th place in the division, 6-11. So the Packers, I just have no idea what Jordan Love's going to be. If he was really good, like he was Mahomes, they would have gotten rid of Rodgers years ago. If he was really bad, like Zach Wilson, they would have kept Rodgers probably. So I think he's going to be, probably around, number 16 to 22 best quarterback, somewhere in the middle of the pack. I don't think he's going to be really good. I don't think he's going to be really bad. It's essentially almost the same team as last year, but they went 8-9 with Aaron Rodgers. So I don't see Jordan Love throwing 26 touchdowns next season. He might, he could. It's not impossible, but I wouldn't bet on it. And that was an off season for Aaron Rodgers. That was probably his worst season statistically. So I wish the best for Love, but he has a tall order replacing Aaron Rodgers. So, I do think they take a little bit of a step back, Green Bay, and I think Jordan Love shows that, he's serviceable, but he's probably limited. The Chicago Bears also 6-11. I definitely think they're going to improve, but will it be enough? They definitely went from having one of the worst receiving cores in the league to having a very solid receiving core. DJ Moore, Chase Claypool, Darnell Mooney. Those are three. First off, DJ Moore is a really good receiver, and the other two are very solid receivers. I know everyone was freaking out on Chase Claypool last year when he got traded. He did nothing, but he's not a number one. He's more of a 2 or a 3. So this fits way more nicely, and they also have Cole Kmet, so that offense is looking a lot better. Now, everyone always likes to, attack the offensive line, and they did allow the 4th most sacks last season, but PFF had them ranked 14th at the end of the season. They were 2nd in pass block win rate, and they were 5th in run block win rate. So definitely better than advertised, the offensive line. So there's no more excuses for Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields is an electric runner, and he's special when it comes to running. But I'm not convinced with his passing. I'm not convinced yet. He did take a slight step forward from the previous season. His numbers improved a little bit passing, but I'm still not convinced. Watching the game, he still looks a little bit shaky when he's throwing the ball. The problem, I do, like I said, I think the offense is going to be better, but their problem really is defense. And, signing a lot of linebackers isn't really going to solve that. But they did also draft the cornerback with Tyreek Stevenson. Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker showed promise last season, so there is some promise for this defense. Maybe the secondary growing, taking another step in their second year, and adding those linebackers in combination will be the perfect formula for the Bears defense vastly improving. Plus, you have a defensive head coach in Matt Eberflus, so it's not crazy to think the Chicago Bears will win more than 6 games, but I have to see it. Justin Fields is 6-21 as a starter. Yeah, 6-21. That's terrible. That's awful. So I gotta see it from him first. And 6 wins would be a vast improvement from the season before. I'm pretty sure they win 2 or 3 games last season. It was a very low number. So again, Detroit Lions 12-5, Minnesota Vikings 8-9, and the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears both at 6-11. So that's the NFC North. Now the NFC South, I have the New Orleans Saints winning the division at 9-8. If you look at their roster, both sides of the ball, it's really talented. It looks really good on paper. I personally like Derek Carr a lot. He was definitely disappointing last year, but he's never played with a defense ranked higher than 20th in points allowed. He's always had a terrible defense. Over his career in the NFL, his defense overall, a combination of all those seasons, has ranked last. I'm pretty sure that was before last season. I haven't looked at the stat after the 2022 season, but that was what it was before. I'm sure it didn't change. John Gruden got fired 2 seasons ago. John Gruden got fired. Henry Ruggs crashed a car going 150 miles an hour into another car, drunk. Got arrested, and he still carried his team to the playoffs. I think he's a leader. Some people think he's a crybaby. I think he's a great leader, and he is okay. So this is an interesting stat. He is the most fourth quarter comebacks through a quarterback's first 10 seasons in the league, but he's only played 9 seasons. So he has the most fourth quarter comebacks for a quarterback through his first 10 seasons, and he's only played 9. He also has the second most game-winning drives in a quarterback's first 9 seasons. So Derek Carr is always playing from behind. He has to win via shootout. And this Saints defense is going to be totally different for him. This is a formidable defense. Derek Carr, when he's at his best, I have him anywhere from 11, 12, 13. Is he a top 10 quarterback? No, but I think he's right on the outskirts when he's at his best. And now the defense last year was 6th in opponent yards allowed, and they were 9th in opponent points allowed. So this is a solid defense. This is a top 10 defense. And he's got pieces on offense. I'm not even going to bring up Michael Thomas, but he's got Chris Olave. That guy Rashid Shaheed came out of nowhere last season. If Kamara can kind of get back to his old self a little bit, they got a formidable offense. So this is I think they're the best team in the division. I think it should be easy for them. This is the worst division in football, in my opinion. So I think they win the division easily. The Carolina Panthers, I have in second place, going 7-10. Do I worry about Bryce Young's size? Yes, but not his ability. I think he'll be effective the very first game of his career. Is he going to last 10 seasons? I don't necessarily have the answer to that, but I know when he plays, he's going to be effective immediately, and he's going to be a good quarterback. You saw it in college. He was the best prospect in the draft by far. People just, kind of doubted him based on his size, and I'm not knocking that. I see a lot, Tua, like a lot of quarterbacks getting injured, and not, so I understand where that's coming from, but you can't question his talent. I think the Panthers could be a sneaky team to fight for a playoff spot in the NFC. But obviously, I don't think 7-10 is going to cut it. But surprisingly, that will be close, and we'll get into that later when I reveal all the other records. But I think there's a lot to be positive about for Carolina going into the season. I really do. They have a very weak receiving core, but Frank Wright to me is a very smart coach, so I think he will make it work. So and their defense, they got some players in defense too. So I think the Panthers are going to be better than people think. They'll be competitive, and, they're going in the right direction. I have the Atlanta Falcons, coming in third place, going 6-11. I don't understand the hype about the Atlanta Falcons. Who's their quarterback? Desmond Ridder? Taylor Heineke? I mean, I know a lot of people love Taylor Heineke. He's a serviceable backup. He's not special. And what's up with Kyle Pitts? His first season was somewhat promising, but then last season he kind of fell off a cliff, was hurt a couple games. He has 3 touchdowns in 2 seasons. 3 touchdowns in 2 seasons. So he's been a little bit of a disappointment. Drake London showed some promise too last season. He's a big receiver. And they drafted Bijan Robinson. So, the offense might be a little effective, but their defense is terrible. 27th in opponent points allowed. Like I said, Arthur Smith, the offense will be okay. They got an offensive-minded head coach. They'll be kind of a little sneaky good on offense, but the defense is going to be their downfall. And they did get Jeff Okudah from Detroit, so that might help a little bit. They might have a little bit of an improvement from last season, but I don't think it's going to be good enough to make the playoffs. I mean, I think they're going to be about the same as last season. Kind of competitive, kind of in it till the end, but aren't good enough. I just don't think they're as well-rounded as people think. I think people are overhyping the Bijan Robinson draft pick, and I think people just still have a lot of hype about Kyle Pitts, and I've yet to see him be special. I mean, he definitely showed promise his rookie season, but I've yet for him to see anything else from him, especially last season. It was a big disappointment. You had him in fantasy, you definitely were pissed, but to me, they just have some good pieces on offense on paper. That's about it. They don't have a quarterback, and if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a shot. So Falcons 6-11. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going 1-15. I just don't think they'll be any good. They have 2 really good receivers, yes, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and they also have some good players on defense. I don't want to forget about that either. But again, what do they have at quarterback? Let's be honest. Baker Mayfield is subpar, and if it turns to Kyle Trask and Mayfield gets benched, Kyle Trask is not the answer to the future. If he was, they wouldn't have gotten Baker Mayfield. They would not have gotten Baker Mayfield. So Kyle Trask is definitely not the answer to the future. Like I said, they have nice pieces of wide out, but who's going to throw in the ball? So, I mean, like Mayfield, okay, Baker's not like awful, but like the season's kind of a wash in my eyes. Like, I think, Todd Bowles is a very good defensive coordinator, but he's proven to not be a good head coach. So they will be a little feisty on defense, and they will be formidable on defense, but I think the offense is going to be kind of a joke because I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball effectively. And if they can't run the ball effectively, the passing game is going to struggle too because Baker needs that play action. He needs a good running game because he's limited. So people wanted to hate on Tom Brady last year and say that he was washed. I would like to see Baker win 8 games with this team. I don't even think he's going to win 5. So I have the Buccaneers going 1-15. So the New Orleans Saints at 9-8, the Carolina Panthers at 7-10, the Atlanta Falcons at 6-11, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 1-15. All right, the NFC West. I have the 49ers going 13-4, winning the division. So it's not about the players on defense. It's not about the players on offense. They have stars everywhere. The question is the quarterback. If Brock Purdy is 80% of what he was last season, the San Francisco 49ers will be fine, and he needs to stay healthy. He needs to make sure he stays healthy. They need a quarterback, a consistent quarterback. They don't even need a great quarterback. They have the pieces to just, all he's got to do is go out there and not screw it up. They just need someone that's not Christian McCaffrey, you know? So the only question I have is, it's starting to get a little, well, it's not a question. I think Kyle Shanahan's a great head coach, excellent head coach. If he lost his job, all other than Andy Reid and probably Belichick and maybe a few other coaches, everyone would be picking up the phone trying to get Kyle Shanahan. But he's definitely starting to feel the pressure. I don't think they would ever let him go, but you have to start to wonder if he's ever going to win a Super Bowl. He's gotten close many times. I mean, they've been in at least the NFC Championship game 3 times under his reign. So he definitely gets them to the playoffs, and he definitely gets them deep in the playoffs. But there's always something that prevents them from, going all the way. Garoppolo kind of outplayed Mahomes in that Super Bowl for 3 quarters, and then Mahomes lit it up. But, they could have put that game away many times, but they didn't. And here we are. They still haven't won a Super Bowl. There's a lot of pressure for them going to the season, just because you're going to have to start paying these players on defense, and, they already paid Debo. Kittle's not getting younger, so you gotta move down if you're San Francisco. But, I think they'll be fine this season as long as Purdy stays healthy and he's still effective. The Seattle Seahawks, I have them going 9-8. I'm not sure if Geno Smith's going to throw 30 touchdowns again, but if he throws about 20 to 25, the Seahawks will be fine. They also added Jackson Smith and Jigma to go along with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett as it is. So they have a great receiving core now. They brought back Bobby Wagner. They had a great rookie class last year. They had an offensive lineman that started every game for them. Kenneth Walker was almost rookie of the year at one point. Tariq Woolen on defense. So they had a great rookie class last year. Now they're going to year 2, so they're going to develop even more. So I think Seattle's going to be fine. I think they're a good team for the NFC. I think they're solid. And as long as Geno Smith plays even to like 90% of what he did last season, just go out there, and he was great with the deep ball last season. Just go out there and be confident again. You've been in the offense for a while, maybe as a backup, but you know the schemes, you know the routes, you know the cover, you know what's going on there now. Watching Russell Wilson for a couple years, and then last year having success. So I think he's going to be fine. I know I didn't have him in my top 10 just because I wanted to see another season from him. If he goes out there and throws 30 touchdowns again, he's probably going to have to be in my top 10 over Stafford or Tua, depending on how far they fall off, especially Stafford. But I think Seattle will be just fine. This, like I said, this is a weak conference, and they'll win 9 games, and they're going to be just fine. I have the Los Angeles Rams going 7-10. I don't think Matt Stafford is washed, but I could be wrong. I think Sean McVay will have the offense rejuvenated. Cooper Kupp's also back from injury. The defense might take a step back, though, because you lost Jalen Ramsey and you also lost Bobby Wagner. But they're definitely going to be more competitive than people think, in my opinion. That's how I feel. You just almost start to wonder how committed Sean McVay is since he almost left to go to the booth. But as long as Stafford's like his normal self and, is making all the throws and getting the ball to Cooper Kupp, I think they'll still be effective. There's a couple things I'm not crazy about the Rams around their roster, the offensive line. I don't know if Cam Akers is going to have a great season. We'll see. Some places on the defense, but as long as Aaron Donald's there in the defense will probably be just fine too, because he's going to be creating a lot of pressure. So I think the Rams win 7 games, which I don't think a lot of people think the Rams will win 7 games, but I think with a combination of great head coach, very smart offensive schemer in Sean McVay, and Max Stafford having been a little bit rejuvenated will give them some success. So 7-10. And I have the Arizona Cardinals going 3-14. I think things are going to be ugly for the majority of the season, but I do think they'll win a couple games when Kyler Murray comes back from injury. Now that they got rid of DeAndre Hopkins, they got rid of a couple players, so they don't have a lot of talent on both sides of the ball now. I mean, I do know Kyler Murray and Hollywood Brown have a good connection just from when they were both healthy last season and from their college days, but it's not going to be enough. if they might be in the running for the number one overall pick. If you get the number one overall pick, I would pick Caleb Williams. I would move on from Kyler Murray if you can. But if you get any other pick other than the number one overall pick, you get 2, 3, 4, whatever it is, keep Kyler Murray and build around him. Because like I said previously, he's a top 10 talent. He's going to get older, so he'll mature eventually. I don't know when that's going to be, but eventually. And, these kinds of quarterbacks are hard to find in this league. And, he can move. He throws a beautiful ball. People don't give him credit for the ball he throws. I feel like I kind of come off as a Kyler Murray apologist, but just because I feel like a lot of people have recency bias. A couple seasons ago, he was in the running for MVP, and now all of a sudden he just can't play. So I try to kind of stay middle grounded. So I do think they're going to struggle this season. He's going to miss a lot of the season. And when he comes back, it's not going to be enough, So, they're going to struggle. 3-14, last place in the NFC West. So for the playoffs, I have the Eagles as the 1 seed, the San Francisco 49ers as the 2 seed, the Detroit Lions as the 3 seed. I think that's how we all have it planned out. The order might switch to those 3, but those 3 are going to win the divisions. So 1, 2, and 3. I have the New Orleans Saints as the 4 seed, winning their division. I think a lot of people agree on that, but not everyone. Some people have the Falcons. Some people think the Carolina Panthers are going to surprise a lot of people. I hope no one has the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but I have the Saints winning the division. I think they gotta have a good roster. I'm not crazy about their coach, but they've had a good culture there, and bringing in Derek Carr, he's a culture guy. So I think that they're going to win the division. I have Dallas as the 5th seed, the Seahawks as the 6th seed, and I have the Minnesota Vikings in the 7th seed. So I have an 8-9 team making the playoffs. I have just missing the Carolina Panthers and the Los Angeles Rams at 7-10. So let me just put this in perspective. 4 teams total in the NFC have over 10 wins. I mean, based on my predictions. I mean, not guaranteeing this is going to happen, but 6 teams in only 2 divisions have 10 wins in the AFC. They had 9 total in the AFC. So 2 divisions have more 10-win teams in the AFC than the whole entire NFC. Now, this might not happen, but this is what I'm predicting, just based on the rosters and who's better. The conferences are lopsided. I don't want to hear anyone that disagrees with me. I think this is a fact. I mean, just look at the quarterbacks. That will tell you what's the better conference. You look at the quarterbacks will bring your eyes to the prize. Okay, all quarterbacks in the AFC besides probably Jalen Hurts, Dak, I guess, and that's why they're all the better teams. So, the Seattle Seahawks would not be making the playoffs in the AFC. Neither would the Cowboys, based on my prediction. So all the wild card teams would not make the playoffs in the AFC. The best division in the NFC will be the second worst division in the AFC. So let me rank the divisions right now, so we put some perspective on stuff. The NFC East I have in first place with a 485 win percentage and 33 wins. So 33 wins for the NFC East, 485 win percentage. Not over 500, just to note that. The NFC West and the NFC North I have tied with a 471 win percentage and 32 wins total. And then the NFC South, the worst division in football, I have getting 23 wins and a 338 win percentage. Okay? So NFC East, 485 win percentage. NFC West and NFC North, 471 win percentage. And the NFC South, 338 win percentage. Just to put that into perspective, the AFC, 3 out of the 4 divisions are over 500. So the best division in the NFC would be right above the AFC South, which has a 368 win percentage. So, it's a lot. Like I said, it's lopsided. The quarterbacks will bring you to the truth. The NFC, you could have a good defense, good running game, a good head coach, and a formidable quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over, and you can make the playoffs. It's very lopsided. But so I have I have the first overall pick in the draft, the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, going to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 1-15. And I think it's perfect because you still have the receivers. So, I feel like Caleb Williams will be ready to play day 1, and he'll be effective day 1. So I think it would be a perfect fit for him. I just think Caleb Williams is talented enough to overcome any kind of chaos, and the Bucs produce a lot of chaos. And I don't think Todd Bowles will be there after the season, so they might switch to an offensive coach. They bring in Caleb Williams. Hopefully they'll have one of the two of Evans and Godwin. and they might keep some pieces on defense, and then they'll be formidable. I don't think Tampa Bay will be a complete rebuild. It might be a 1 to 2 year rebuild, but I think Tampa Bay is a good fit for Caleb Williams. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 1-15. I also have the Indianapolis Colts and the Washington Commanders both at 2-15. So they just missed. So one of them is going to get Drake May. I guess it wouldn't be Anthony Richardson unless he was a complete disaster this season. So I guess I predict the Washington Commanders to get Drake May, which is also a great fit for them with new ownership, new horizons for the Washington Commanders. So that's really it. I know this one was kind of shorter than last week, but I just wanted to get straight to the point. The conferences are lopsided. It's gonna be, you have two teams with 7 wins barely missing the playoffs in my predictions. So it's gonna get a little ugly in the NFC. It's gonna be more of old school football. I feel like it'll be more of old school football in the NFC, and you kind of have that with San Francisco, great defense, and so you have that more in the NFC. So. That's what I think is going to happen. So, all right, take care, and I'll see you next week.